Welcome back. This is Jen Yaeger with tip number 3. And today's tip is really about practicing questions related to our previous tip on understanding the difference between phonological awareness, phonemic awareness, and phonics. Not only do I want to help you understand how to approach these particular questions, but also how to approach questions in general. Because I know many people talk about how dense the questions can be, how wordy, and how hard it can be to choose often between two questions that look equally strong. So let's get started.
So let's take this first question. It says, which of the following students is demonstrating the specific type of phonological awareness known as phonemic awareness? And this question, like many others you'll see, provides you with extra information that provides context for the question, but it's important that you kind of read through that question first, making sure you know what is the question asking. Too often, I see people skimming through the question, then diving right into the answers. And that's sometimes where you can be lured away from the right answer. So the first thing I know, using this chart from tip number 2, is that phonological awareness, including phonemic awareness, are auditory skills. We're talking about auditory only, and you see over here, it means it's not about the letters. And although phonological awareness and phonemic awareness does support phonics and is the foundation to learning phonics, the skill of phonemic awareness itself is an auditory one. So as I go through the questions, I'm going to be looking for an answer that speaks specifically to a phonemic awareness auditory skill. A says, a student who, after being shown a letter of the alphabet, can orally identify its corresponding sounds. I know that's not right because that's phonics. It's connecting sounds to letters, and that's phonics. B, a student who listens to the words sing, ring, fling, and hang, and can identify that hang is different. I noticed that these first 3 are rhyming words and hang is not. So this is about phonological awareness, specifically rhyming, and you'll see that here. It's a more broad category of phonological awareness, not phonemic awareness. C, a student who, after hearing the word hat, can orally identify that it ends with a sound t. And when you see those lines around the T, it means the sound the T makes. And that is the right answer, although we always check to make sure we go through every single one. But that's the right answer because it's an auditory only skill, but it's working with the individual sounds and words. Phonemic awareness is about individual sounds, and letter C is about an individual sound, the last sound in the word hat. D says a student who listens to the word magazine and can determine that it contains 3 syllables. Magazine. Being able to identify, clap, count the syllables in a word is an example of broad phonological awareness. So again, in this question, you need to know that you're looking for phonemic awareness, an auditory only skill that's working with individual sounds and words. And as a reminder, you'll see in this word phonemic, the word me spelled backward. It will remind you that it's about an individual skill. Let's try another one. This is question 2 from the practice test. It says a kindergarten teacher could best determine if a child has begun to develop phonemic awareness. So again, it's a kindergarten teacher, which means that they're in their early stages of working with phonemic awareness. And we know specifically the question needs to be about phonemic awareness, an auditory skill that is working with individual sounds and words. So A says, count the number of words a child hears in a sentence as the teacher says the sentence. And as we look at that chart again, we'll see that counting words in a sentence is an example of broad phonological awareness, not phonemic awareness. So A is wrong. B says, say the word cat, then say the first sound the child hears in the word. K. That's the first sound in the word. That's an individual sound, auditory only. That looks like the right answer, but let's keep going. Letter C says, point to the correct letter on an alphabet chart as the teacher names specific letters. Well, I know that phonemic awareness is about sounds only, not about the letters. However, there's something more to this letter C that I want to point out. It's also not phonics because something's missing. If this were phonics, a phonics answer, you would have auditory plus visual. So letter C is not phonemic awareness, but I also want you to notice that it's also not phonics. This is just letter identification or letter naming. So even though we are looking for answers related to phonemic awareness, I want to help you what these other answers represent because that can help you with different questions. D, Listen to the teacher say boat and coat and identify whether they rhyme. Rhyming is an example of broad phonological awareness. So you can see again how this chart can really help us in answering some of these questions where you're comparing, contrasting the difference between phonological awareness, phonemic awareness, and phonics. Let's try one more. A teacher holds up a series of familiar objects, asking students to name each object and isolate the final sound they hear. For example, let's see, cup, my cup, cup. The last sound we hear in cup is p. That's an example of phonemic awareness. It's an auditory only activity and we're isolating a final sound. This type of activity would be most appropriate for students who A, need help developing phonemic segmentation skills. Segmenting is isolating individual sounds in a word. And that's what we were doing with the example of cup. But let's continue to look. B is performing below grade level fluency, benchmarks in reading fluency. That may or may not be the case, but we don't have any information in the description for number 4 to help us with that. So just know that on the test, sometimes the place where people go astray is that they think about the scenario in the question and then draw a conclusion or leap to a conclusion about other areas in which that child may be struggling. You will never be asked to do that. You should take the information in the question and find the answer that most relates to that question. And without information about grade level benchmarks and reading fluency, we can't draw any conclusions. At the same time, I can say that a child who's working on phonemic awareness is probably also not at a stage where they are reading passages for fluency, but you wouldn't have to know that in order to answer this question. You just know that the information here is about phonemic awareness and B is not. C says lacks automaticity in word recognition. Well, they probably aren't working on that quite yet, but they might be. We don't know, but we do know for sure that it doesn't say anything about that in the information for number 4. So C would not be right either. Lacks automaticity is not related to isolating a final sound in a word, and so C is wrong. D has difficulty sounding out phonetically regular one-syllable words. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But again, we don't have that information in the information provided in question number 4. So one of the most important things you can do for yourself is to remember that your answer needs to stay really close and true to the information provided in the scenario and in the information provided in the question, rather than leaping to or drawing conclusions about other areas of reading development where the child may need help. So I hope that these tips will help you. If you'd like to participate in our workshop, we go through lots of practice questions and the open response in a similar format